Ever feel like you're running towards a goal, trying to grab happiness, but your brain's like, nope, we're playing a totally different game. Like it's wired for joy, just like a different kind of joy.
Totally.
Today, that's our deep dive. How to really feel happy when your brain operates on, ADHD time. We're jumping into The Happy Brain, Ethics, ADHD, and Mental Health by Dr. P Ayesha.
Yeah, this book was like a breath of fresh air.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
it just gets it. Dr. Ayesha really gets into the nitty-gritty of like the ADHD experience, especially when we try to find happiness in a world not really made for us.
And that's huge EE. One of the biggest things I took away was how the book explains dopamine, that feel-good brain chemical.
Right.
It's not that we with ADHD don't have it. It's more like our brains use it up, I don't know, maybe faster. Like, imagine a gas tank that empties way quicker.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly depleting. It's like we're always looking for ways to fill it back up. And society's like happiness is this big reward, the promotion, the fancy thing you buy. But for us, those moments, they might not last. The joy fades quicker.
So true. Like, maybe our reward system is just wired differently from the ground up. And that's where the book gets super interesting because it breaks down happiness into these three parts. Pleasure, engagement, meaning, and how ADHD plays into each one. We all know pleasure candy, funny video feels good, NOW, then poof, gone.
And those bursts aren't bad, but for lasting happiness, especially with ADHD, we've got to find things that grab our attention and indeed have meaning. The book calls this engagement, that feeling of flow. A lot of us with ADHD, we experience it intensely.
Totally. Like that coding project you lose yourself in for hours, or building something intricate where time just disappears, you're in the zone. But finding that same flow in everyday stuff,
Oh, yeah.
that's where it gets tricky. And that's where this book comes in. And then there's that thing, meaning, that feeling of, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Even without ADHD, it can be hard to find. But this is where the book got me thinking in a way I hadn't before. Because it goes into, get this, ethical dilemmas that come with ADHD.
Which so often people don't talk about. Dr. Ayesha makes this amazing connection, how we handle those ethical parts. That's huge GE for our happiness, like when our actions and our values line up, especially important with ADHD.
So it's deeper than just knowing our brains. It's also how that affects our choices, how we deal with the world, right?
Exactly. And the book dives into these three big ethics things: consequentialism, deontology, virtue ethics, and how they might be different for us ADHD folks.
Okay, hold on. Ethics isn't really my strong suit, I gotta be honest. Break down consequentialism for me.
So basically, it's aiming for the best outcome, the most good for the most people.
Sounds simple enough.
Right. But someone with ADHD, that best outcome might be whatever's right in front of them, fulfilling that dopamine need without thinking long term.
I'm starting to see it. So me, with my ADHD, using this consequentialism, I might say yes to too much stuff. Because right now, it feels good to please people, avoid conflict, even if later I'm drowning in stress.
Spot on. Then you got deontology, more about rules, doing your duty, which can be good for us, right? We like structure, clear directions. But it can also clash with us needing to be flexible, finding those workarounds we're good at.
Always that balance, needing structure, but also needing to break free and be creative when we have to. What about that third one, virtue ethics?
This was about building good traits in yourself, honesty, kindness. And this is huge key for ADHD. Self-compassion, not beating ourselves up, but getting our brains just work different, being kind about it to ourselves and others.
That I love. Like self-compassion is ethical, makes a ton of sense with ADHD.
For sure. The book then gets into specific dilemmas we face more often.
Oh, like that classic promising you'll do something then. Oops. It's not that we don't care or that we're trying to break a promise. It's more a working memory blip or some other thing grabs our attention harder in that moment.
Exactly. And then honesty versus oversharing.
Oh, tell me you haven't been there.
We've all been there. That impulse to blurt, even if it's not the time or place.
Done it, regretted it.
Yeah.
But it's comforting to know it's not being bad, it's how our ADHD brains do. So more self-awareness, finding ways to handle those situations better.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the happy brain. Making that effort to be ethical, even the little things, the book says, that helps our well-being overall.
So like a good cycle, we act in line with our values, even if it's tough sometimes, and that can boost how we feel about ourselves. Less guilt, less anxiety, and all that adds up to more happiness, more feeling good about life.
You got it. It's knowing we've got the power to choose actions that match what we believe in, and that makes us feel better. ND is better for everyone around us.
That's powerful stuff. Knowing these struggles are common, getting the why behind them, it's validating. But how do we actually do it in real life? Thankfully, the book doesn't leave us hanging. It gives us actual practical advice for more happiness, even with ADHD.
Oh, for sure. It's like Dr. Ayesha gives you a whole toolbox. She gets that what works for one person might not for another. It's about finding what clicks for you, making your own happiness path.
Love that. So let's get into these strategies. One that jumped out at me, small goals and routine. Now, I'm a big picture person, love a good ambitious to-do list, but honestly, often ends in overwhelm and then procrastination. What's the book say about that?
Remember the gas tank analogy.
Right.
The book says break those tasks down, smaller chunks, way more manageable for our brains. Instead of one huge reward at the end of this massive thing, we get little dopamine hits along the way, celebrating the small wins.
Hacking the reward system, basically. Instead of one giant leap up Mount Everest, we set up base camps along the way, celebrate those, get that momentum going.
Exactly. And this is where routine comes in. And I know.
Yeah, here we go.
For a lot of us, routine sounds about as fun as like a dentist appointment.
Okay, you said it, not me. But yeah, I get it. Too much structure can feel stifling. So how does the book make routine work for an ADHD brain?
Think of it less like strict rules, more like building scaffolding. You're creating this predictable framework, so there's less decision fatigue, more stability, which secretly lots of us crave.
Okay, so we've got these building blocks, right? Small goals, routine. But what about when it's like brain hamsters on a wheel? Just anxious thoughts round and round. The book talks about mindfulness, gratitude, and gotta be honest, I've been like, yeah, right about those before. A little too, I don't know, out there for me.
Oh, I hear you. But Dr. Ayesha, she explains them in a way that makes sense for ADHD. Like mindfulness, being present, right? It's hard when your brain's jumping in between thoughts a mile a minute. But even a few seconds of just being can really calm things down.
Okay, so it's like hitting the pause button on all that mental noise. And gratitude, because some days my to-do list is longer than, I don't even know. Gratitude's the last thing on my mind.
Totally get it. But here's how the book frames it. It's like an antidote. ADHD, we can get stuck in negativity. Not ignoring the bad stuff, but training ourselves to see the good, no matter how small. Little joys we usually miss when we're busy stressing.
So instead of automatically focusing on what's wrong or what's next, it's choosing to see the good stuff already here.
Exactly. And it gets easier the more you do it, like building a muscle. A gratitude muscle helps you deal with life's ups and downs, ADHD or not. Makes you tougher.
I like that. Gratitude muscle. Way more concrete than just be grateful.
Right. Speaking of concrete, the book keeps coming back to self-compassion. Goes back to that virtue ethics thing. Dr. Ayesha argues it's important for everyone, but especially us ADHD folks.
Yeah.
We tend to get down on ourselves, like our brains are some kind of problem to fix.
Oh, for sure. It's like ADHD comes with this built-in self-criticism machine always on. Why can't I just try harder, be more like everyone else? It's so draining.
The worst. And the book's like, nope, treat yourself like you'd treat a good friend who's struggling. Accepting that our brains are wired differently, and that's fine, not a defect, just our unique thing.
I love that. Permission to be ourselves, Celebrate what's awesome about ADHD brains instead of always trying to fit in.
Yes, that's self-acceptance.
Yeah.
It's huge for being happy, having a good life, even if we don't do things the normal way.
For sure. But it's not all in our heads, right? The book also says we got to create an environment that works for ADHD.
Oh, absolutely. Remember how we said routines like external structure?
Yeah.
This goes further. Your space, your schedule, even what you're hearing, seeing. How can we tweak those to help us not make things harder?
Creating a world that works with our brains, that might mean a workspace that's like a fortress of focus. No distractions allowed. No distractions allowed. Noise-canceling headphones, timers, whatever it takes.
Exactly. It's figuring out what sets you off, what helps you, and building your world around that.
And not just the physical stuff, right? Having people who get it is huge.
So important. That was one of my biggest takeaways. Find your tribe. Other ADHD folks, family or friends who understand, therapists who specialize in it, people who see how amazing our brains are, not just the problems.
It's that feeling of belonging, makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, happiness isn't this thing you achieve, it's the journey. And it's way more fun with the right people along for the ride.
Ain't that the truth? This book, The Happy Brain, it gives you so much to think about, tools to use. But the biggest thing, maybe, is it lets us define happiness on our terms.
100%. It's not about being normal or chasing what everyone else says is success. It's knowing your brain, how it experiences the world, and making a life that fits that.
Beautifully put. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what hit home for you? What's one little thing you can do today to feel happier, more yourself, with that awesome ADHD brain leading the way? Let us know. Until next time, keep
A
exploring.
special thank you from the heart